Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my podcast. This is Arun Gala. My podcast is called Grabbing Coffee with Arun, where I interview interesting people. Um, my guest today is Wes Ferrell.
Hello,
Um,
hello.
hey, Wes. Just to kind of start off with, Wes, um, you have a condition called retinopathy of prematurity, right?
Yes,
So
so
tell me about
I
that.
was I was born in 1969, premature. I was 2 pounds 4 ounces. Because of that, they had to put me in an incubator, and there was too much oxygen. The retina in my left eye totally detached, and partially in my right eye with retinal scarring and other complications. So I've been legally blind for my life. My best corrected vision has been around 2200, and now it's a little worse. Well, it's a lot worse than that because of other complications. So it's only one part of one eye that I can use to see things.
So tell me what was childhood like for you? Was it, were you kind of separated from the other kids, or how were you treated?
Well, in elementary school, I was bused off to a school with other kids with disabilities, all kinds of disabilities, everything from hyperactivity to hearing impaired, blind. They just put us all together. And in the fourth grade, they decided to mainstream me at the end of fourth grade. So from school, I went in and repeated the fourth grade, local elementary school, where was in classes with, um, we'll say, average, non-disabled students. In other words, mainstreamed.
Mhm.
And that it was a challenge. I managed to do okay. They had um, teachers that would come in and reinforce certain things like typing. I knew how to type at a very early age because my writing wasn't that good and I was slow and I had difficulty reading my own writing. So that's when they decided to move to things like typing. And of course, there were some adaptations they had to meet. I started reading large print. When that became too slow, they set up with books on tape. And of course, now everything's digitalized. That was a real benefit back then.
So were you able to walk around on your own, and did you use a cane at that young age, or how did you manage all that?
For school, I really didn't, and with friends, they would watch out for me, and we'd even go bicycle riding. I could follow along, and they would, tell me if I was going to miss a turn or hit anything. And my parents pretty much accepted that I was going to have to, um, live as a kid, and they didn't. They tried not to shelter me, although occasionally they did, which I guess makes sense. But I think it was their mindset that to excel, you have to be um, sociable. A lot of blind kids fall into the trap doing things like rocking or looking their eye, things like that. That was drilled out of me really quick.
Mhm.
They reinforced things like looking at people when they talk to you, and that's been interesting in later life because people sometimes don't realize I have a problem at all. Sometimes if I don't have my cane, if I'm walking sighted guide and someone, I uh, it's my hand from their shoulder, or elbow. Might be pretty much, um, not looking blind, especially because I wear glasses, and that confuses people too. Well, if you're blind, why do you wear glasses?
Yeah.
Honestly, the glasses are a lot protecting because they really can't fix my visual impairment wherever I could get something like 20/20 vision. The most correctable it's ever been, like I said earlier, is 2200.
But yours is not
And
progressive,
right now it's around 2400. So,
right? But your condition is not progressive like mine is, right?
well,
The-
it's getting worse because of other complications. So in 2000, I had, 2001, I had a cataract operation,
mhm.
and the tried to put in an interocular lens, which they do. It's common routine. My capsule, um, that they normally place the interocular lens on collapsed, and they had to sew it in. So it's high pressure problems and glaucoma. And then recently, starting in 2008, issues with something called band keratopathy, which is being built up on the eye. And the only thing they can do to get rid of it is scrape it off.
Mhm.
I'm awake for that. It's in the office procedure, but speculation. It's quite an experience.
So then you went on to college, right? And did you?
Let's go back to high school real quick because I think it's important how, and I don't know if you experienced this.
Mhm.
Um, in middle school and high school, they really pushed me
Mhm.
to stay up the other students so much that I had to stay after school and work with the, um, uh, actually I called them visual handicap teachers at that time, which
Right.
also shows you how much language has changed.
Mm.
And I even had one of the school teachers ask, if I was being pushed too hard.
Mhm.
I think it's important because I think as visually impaired people, we have to push ourselves harder than the average to get the same results.
But it's not like it's
That's
a culture thing or anything, right? Like that, right? Like Asian parents, they kind of push you a little bit more and stuff. So I guess it wasn't like
no,
that.
no, it wasn't a culture thing. It's if you want to succeed, this is what you're going to have to do.
Mhm.
That's just the way the school district, my parents, and those around me.
But did you feel different compared to other students?
Oh yeah, yeah. I had, I was bullied. They um, had these glasses because I only saw a little bit out of one eye. It had a monocular, which is kind of like a telescope mounted to
Mhm.
the right side.
I,
And these girls in my math class, they would relentlessly tease me about it.
I guess you didn't have a bigger sister protecting you like me. Well, you have a sister, right?
She's younger. Yeah, she's 4 years younger.
Oh, okay. But
Yeah.
nobody in your family has your condition, right?
No, no. So, yeah, there is bullying, there's that stuff. And I really think in the long run, it makes you a stronger person.
Mhm.
I had one kid that constantly bugged me. He'd take something from me once a day, a
Mhm.
pencil that I used, and he'd give it back the next day. And just that,
Yeah.
this
Kind of.
person has that much control. School wouldn't do anything. And so let's go. Um, when Facebook became popular back in the let's say around 2007 or 8 maybe, I get a friend request from this guy. I'm like,
Mhm.
ooh, I feel so like I don't want to do this.
Mhm.
I was with some friends at the time, and they didn't even know. I friended him, and you know what he asked for? He asked for prayer because he was going through back problems, and he wanted to apologize for all the stuff he did in high
Mhm.
school.
Mhm.
And that's really touching that something we do as kids can be forgiven.
Mhm. So did you forgive him?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, yeah. I told
Uh,
him I'd pray for him because it's everybody has problems. We happen to have vision problems, but some people have back problems,
mhm.
mental problems. We
So
we each have our own things to deal with.
yeah, so moving on to college or your university, how did you manage with the low vision?
So before I went to college, there are two things that I did. The Lighthouse of Houston, and this is the Lighthouse for the Blind, they're still around. They had a group of apartments that you could live in and learn living skills.
Mhm.
And they taught me things like to cook, clean, shop. So I did that at the beginning of the summer, and then I went to a place in Austin called Chris Cole. It's also a rehabilitation for the blind center, and I stayed there the remainder of the summer. They did two college courses at Austin Community College, where we had to ride the bus and get there ourselves, and they were mainstream courses.
Mhm.
I did those, and of course learned more. We'll call them and the skills. And after that, I felt prepared to go to. When I came back to Houston, I went to. It was it's now Lone Star. I did that for to get all my prerequisites, and then transferred into University of Houston, where I got my degree in management information systems.
Mhm.
And so they had a, a office called Handicapped Student Services, and
Mhm.
this is back in '91. Um, and they provided readers and volunteers to put things on tape, and test taking areas where you could have a reader come in, read the test to you, and that's something else you had to learn how to do, is advocate for yourself.
Right.
So the first day of class, I'd walk up there with my cane, say, "Hi, I'm Wes. I'm legally blind. How can we make this work?"
You're not mentally blind, mentally impaired. You're
Right,
visually
right,
impaired.
right, right. So I'd work with the teachers, and then sometimes that would be coming in off hours to their offices and getting some extra help on things, and or finding groups of students that were taking the same course. I remember it wouldn't have been, if it wasn't for a certain group, I don't think I would have passed my stats 2 class,
Mhm.
because it was just a difficult class, and there was a lot of math that was pretty much visual
Right.
that you had to do. And as far as technology back then, I did have an IBM computer with text to speech, and actually, I'd always been into computers. Even in high school, the Apple IIe, it had text to speech as well, and that's kind of where my love for computers. And I always knew that I wanted to get into that field, so that's why I did the management information systems at University of Houston. And as far as other kids on campus, um, they pretty much accepted me at the college level. I found it a lot easier in high school to be accepted,
Hmm.
within the group. And I don't know if it's because people, grew up and more mature, or it did seem that people were more understanding.
Were you able to get
So
around the campus okay? Because it's a pretty big campus, U of H.
like most of us, we go through something called orientation and mobility. So those classes started in elementary school,
Oh,
and they would provide us an instructor that would take us out of school and do various tasks like walk around our subdivision. I had to memorize all the streets in our subdivision, all the intersections where it's safe to cross. And then they would take us to a mall and say, okay, on your way to Foley's or something like that. And would have to go through the routes and do that. And, occasionally they say you can ask for help or whatever. And I do that. And I'd get questions too from people. How are you walking around? How are you doing this? Why aren't you in school?
hmm.
And the same thing at U of H. They sent an orientation and mobility instructor out there. I lived on campus in the towers because it would have been it was about a 30-minute drive from my house without Metro Lift. With Metro Lift, it could be an hour,
Right.
2 hours a day traveling plus all the classes. And, some of them were at different times. And my parents thought that the college experience would be better anyway. But yeah, I'd come home occasionally and do laundry.
Right. So after that, you went on to work at the Federal
Federal
Aviation.
Aviation Administration.
Hmm.
Mm. Right after college. And this is so my work history started in '88, where I was fortunate. We had a neighbor who was an optometrist,
Hmm.
and he needed all the visual. He was really forward thinking, and he had a Corrado tape backup. And I remember I worked with those, and
Hmm.
he said that he wanted all of his visual field tests scanned and put on these tapes. Yeah, I know how to do that. Um, so the only thing was using the scanner, and of course I really couldn't see the output, but it's just lining up a piece of paper on a scanner.
Hmm.
I did that for a summer, and that was some good experience, just working with people. But I think I was too hyper focused on it. I mean, I'd eat my lunch at my desk and just keep on working.
Hmm.
So after I got all the records backed up, and of course I had to go back to school. So then later on, uh, we learned some programs like Lotus 123, which was the predecessor of Microsoft Excel for
Oh.
spreadsheets. And I worked with a roofing and siding company doing various spreadsheets and statistical analysis for them, and regional reports and stuff like that. And that was a summer job as well. But
Hmm.
here's the problem with being visually impaired back then, and it might be the same today. I couldn't get a job at Jack in a Box or McDonald's
Hmm.
or anywhere because they just wouldn't. They're a visually impaired person. They thought it would be too much of a liability.
Right.
But then, of course, so I had a little bit of work experience when I got up, and I think I sent out hundreds of resumes
Oh, yeah.
using just. I think I spent all my money on stamps, and I did find a few time contractor jobs doing little things like computer invoice system, and yeah, it was Word Perfect
Hmm.
for a company in Louisiana that they actually sold wheelchair lifts. That was kind of neat. And we, we sent everything. The internet wasn't really big yet, so he sent everything via modem as far as my work. And then I, just odd jobs, but they only lasted weeks or months. And then one day, my mom was in the mall, and she happened to see a former Texas Commission for the Blind slur of mine,
Hmm.
and asked if there are any jobs available. And she was working for, I don't know, I think it was Texas Rehabilitation Commission or something like that. But she said, yes, there is, but you have to work for 90 days for free, kind of like an internship.
Oh, okay.
And if they like you, they'll pick you up. I went ahead and did that because what did I have to lose?
Right.
And I poured everything into it. And they liked me. And I started off with the Federal Aviation Administration in 1995, supporting PCs.
No, you've been there a
So
while.
yeah. So supporting 12 PCs. And as my career grew, I moved on to supporting the entire facility, and then later on our regional computers, and now I'm at a national level
Hmm.
doing team management. So it's been a wild ride as far as my career. It's been a real adventure, a real pleasure.
Yeah, it's been
And of
crazy.
course, I've learned a lot over the years.
Yeah, it's been crazy. Even with your visual limitations, you can do all that.
Yeah, it's um, I don't let that hold me back. And the wild thing now is because everything's remote.
Hmm.
I could be working with someone in Alaska one day, Florida the next, New York the next. It's it's pretty much everywhere. And most of the people, unless they hear a text to speech thing go off or something else, they really don't realize I have a visual impairment
Hmm.
until it's mentioned.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Do you remember how you and I met?
Uh, it was an NFB or an ACB convention.
I think it was HCB,
Yeah,
Houston Council
down
for
in
the Blind.
Hobby. I'm Hobby, you and David. I remember my mom drove me up there because I just didn't want to deal with Metro, and I wasn't doing anything. But yeah, we met there.
It was at that Adams
You and
Mark
David.
Hotel, and
Yep.
when I met you, you were like, "Who's this weird guy that wants to talk to me?"
Well, you're still wanting to talk to me, so there you
Right,
go.
right. So tell me, how does a younger person deal with if they're dealing with something like what you have? Like it's hard for me to kind of. What would you tell a younger person that's dealing with a condition like yours?
I think everything has shifted because back when I was growing up, we didn't have the resources that we have now.
Hmm.
Now we have the internet. We have accessible iPhones right out of the box, accessible computers right out of the box.
Yeah,
We
voiceover.
didn't have that back then, and now we do. I think the problem is working with society to show people with visual impairments can do things. Because unless you know someone who's visually impaired, you're not going to know.
Right.
You're going to assume that someone with a visual impairment can't handle these things. Uh, and that's just human nature. If you haven't experienced it, you might not understand it.
Hmm.
So
So,
I think a lot of it to do with we have
it,
the resources, we have college, we have education, but we transfer that into the workforce. I think we need to do better at getting that done.
we need to get better at educating people and what we
Yeah.
can do, things like that. But I want to move on to what as a visually impaired person, what do you do to enjoy life? What kind of hobbies do you have?
Um, well, my days are pretty full. I have a wife and two kids. Both of them are in their 20s. And I remember, especially them growing up, so much was around them. Uh, my days are pretty full. Now, son now lives close by. He has a dog, Shepherd Pyrenees, 75-pound dog, and he's my unofficial guide dog. We go running together almost every day.
Hmm.
That's always fun. So
Yeah.
yeah, I do run. Coming up in February 1st is Ski for Light, which is cross country skiing, and my wife is going for the first time to volunteer as a well, who knows? They'll put her to work, but yeah, she said she'd volunteer this year. So it's going to be great.
But
But yeah,
this,
Ski for Light, they provide a person to ski along with you and kind of teach you some of the skills, techniques of cross country skiing. This isn't downhill; it's cross country. So, as I like to put it, you have to go up the hills you go down. There's a lot more fitness involved downhill.
mhm. But this is a program run by Ski for Life,
Ski for Light, yes, sfl.org.
and it's once a year, or how does one get involved with that? Or,
Um, you can go to sfl.org, and if you're not in Houston, they do have regions. So there are regional events as well as national events. I've only done the national events because, of course, in Texas we don't have snow for it. So there aren't any. I don't think Texas is in a region. I have talked to people that went to regional events, and they're fun too.
mhm. Um, Before I let you go, Wes, can you talk a little bit about your iPhone and the group that you're involved with?
Oh, sure. So Bug Today, it's ibugtoday.org. Um, they're a nonprofit, and they do everything over Zoom now, and they instruct people on how to use their iPhones, iPads, Mac computers, and it's a wonderful group. Unfortunately, right now I don't have the amount of time I'd like to donate to them, but I've given time in my moderating, and I always try to support them by going to various events around the area, kind of supporting and telling people about them because they are a wonderful group. If you are new to accessibility with Apple devices, and they have some fun stuff too, like a video described movie night on Friday and a Trek Trekkie Talk group where they go through Star Trek episodes. They're they're really a great group.
Yeah. Was there anything else that you wanted to cover, Wes? Or,
I can't think of anything unless you have any other questions.
no. So how bad is your eyesight now?
Um, I think it really depends. So um, let's put it this way: they show you the big E, then there's three letters under that, and then there's a few. Yeah, so I can get to the three letters now, and that's because there's something called nystagmus where my eye jiggles, and that causes an issue. And then there's also the band keratopathy that I mentioned earlier. But as far as computer screens, I use a bunch of different methods. Everything from
Right.
text to speech to there's a package called Fusion.
Hmm. Yeah, because when I was showing my niece voiceover, it comes right out of the box. I think it kind of surprises people.
Oh, it does, but of course, to them, it makes an iPhone useless.
Right, right,
And the same with Android. I think I've turned it on my wife's phone by accident a few times, and she's like, "The only thing I want to know about this is how to turn it off
right.
because it does turn the gestures on your phone to something totally different."
Well,
Yeah,
what?
for what it does for us, it's amazing. And that was done with the kindness of Apple deciding we're going to do this, and because Apple did this, you see Google now does it with their Chromebooks, and Windows now has Narrator, which is it's getting there.
Yeah, because the thing of it
I'm
is,
kind of amazed at what they've done. I actually use Narrator on some servers that I remote into because it's the only thing available, and you really Fusion has such a high footprint, you can't put it on servers. But since Narrator's built in, I can turn it on and listen to things and turn it off when I'm done. It's I think eventually Microsoft is going to get where Narrator is
yeah,
with screen reader.
believe it or not, it's a good time to be blind, huh? With all these
It
talking
is. It
books and
is.
all
I
that.
mean, look at I don't have any, but they have the smart glasses now, the Metas,
Oh yeah,
um,
yeah, I need to
where
get a
you can
pair.
look at something and just say, hey, AI, what am I looking at? It'll tell you.
Right,
I mean, we can do that with our phones now with seeing AI and Be My Eyes because they have the AI functionality built into both of those. But I haven't tried the hands-free experience. I hear it's pretty nice, but and and honestly, I use my iPhone for that almost every day, looking at a label or something like that.
right.
So
You know,
and as you remember, we didn't have this stuff many
oh
years ago.
no, no, not. Technology has come a long way. Anyway, all right, Wes, it was good talking with you. And if you guys want to reach me, my email is arun.gaalla@gmail.com. Um, thanks again, Wes. It was good talking with you. Thanks for sharing your story. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye bye.